Hello everyone, welcome to the dark room. No, it's quite light in here, but outside it's very dark and it's chucking down with rain. Schools have been closed again for another 2 days, so it's a perfect time to get crafting, isn't it? However, procrastinating on videos has become a thing, so I've decided to give myself a little helping tool in the form of, do any of you remember playing general knowledge? You used to write the alphabet down on a piece of paper and then circle it and then close your eyes, take a pen and try and get, depending on who you were playing with, the worst letter to think of different places and names to write down on the piece of paper, or try and aim for the one that you know you have all the answers for. Well, I decided to create a little sheet for myself because I have a knitting update, I have whips and cowls and a yarn hoard, but I can't decide what I need to start on. So what normally happens is I grab a whip or a cowl and I just get cracking with that, and by the end of my time that I've had to sit down and crochet, I haven't made a video. And so some of my whips and cowls have just been progressing along and I haven't had the chance to share that with you. So let's have our old-fashioned little game, play a choice maker for us. That's a miss. That's a miss. Okay, we've landed on knit. So I will take knit off on all the places that I have it down. But yes, very exciting news with knitting update. Okay, so our knitting projects. Now, as I grab my little knitting bag that I have here, and the first washcloth that I pull out, which I am going to share and talk about now, is actually a crochet washcloth, because the very last washcloth that we did complete was the cross hatch cable crochet washcloth, and which is actually a good thing, because now we can see, well, for myself, I can actually see a difference between the crochet washcloth and the knit washcloth that I did complete. So this was the crochet one. It's a, if I turn it this way, you can see the pattern maybe a bit better. I loved it. It looks like waves. Now the first difference going to do a crochet washcloth was that I actually used a 4.5 millimeter crochet hook for this washcloth, and the cotton that I have been using for the knitting ones as well is Kismet's Reisha. It's 100% pure cotton. It recommends using a 3.5 millimeter hook. As I say, for this particular one, I did use a 4.5 millimeter crochet hook, and I just put a little border on around it with my handy dandy little hanging loop that I do like to add to these washcloths. And this was used with only one strand. I think this is a DK. It does say that it's a DK. So for the cross hatch cable crochet washcloth, I used a 4.5 millimeter crochet hook. Absolutely gorgeous pattern. And the Reisha DK yarn. So if I dig in here, there it is, the last knit washcloth, and I think this is number 6 or 7 of the washcloths. So I think this one would be the 7th or the 8th washcloth. That was our first crochet one. All the others were knit, and it was the moss stitch. So here it is, the moss stitch washcloth. This, from all the others that I've made so far, turned out perfectly square. The border shows up so nicely. The pattern is absolutely gorgeous. This was quite a quick make when I made it, which surprised me. I did add my little hanging loop. I still have my, that was the last time I put my safety line in this washcloth. It really worked up an absolute treat. And I'm close enough to say that I think this one in particular would actually be gift worthy with a lovely bar of soap. Now, for this knit washcloth, I'm still using the Kismet Raisha, so we said it's a DK, but I'm using it double stranded with a 5mm circular knitting needle. And so far that's what works best for me when knitting. So that's our moss stitch knitting washcloth. And the very last one that we did was the crochet one, using a 4.5mm crochet hook and single strand. So this was double stranded and this was with a single strand. Now when I completed, and I did this a little while ago already now, when I had completed the knit washcloth, I did have a recommended beginner friendly knit video pop up, and as I had completed the fall shawl with fiber flax knitting, there was a easy rib knit beanie that popped up also with fiber flax knitting, and I did complete one. Here is this, my first knit beanie, and there was quite a lot to learn with this beanie, which is why I'm feeling, yes, I have this from inside here. I put it in here to remind me that with this beanie, I learned something about, in crochet, we have the magic ring, and with knitting, you may need to learn, I certainly did, and I had to watch several different people before it actually clicked in my head, was something called the magic loop. So for this, I used Saprotex Owl Charity Chunky in this very rich red color. It's called Dark Cherry. And I used a 6mm circular needle. These ones. Now, as knitting is just a beginner's journey for me at the moment, I did go out and buy circular needles because I started off with those long straight needles. A 6mm, a 5mm, and a 4mm. And as I had previously mentioned, so far my projects and knitting is quite pleasurable with the 5 and the 6 for me. I've dropped the beanie just a second. But they all have this. And I can't remember how many you cast on for this. It wasn't very many stitches. Obviously, you don't need this. And I was very intimidated by, you know, the double point thing. I really don't have all that terminology down, and some of that scares me a little bit. But before I said no, I kept trying to see there must be some way that one can use these, and there is. And I was totally fascinated, and as I said, it took me at least seven on one day. There were many I went back and watched. The one that helped me the most, if I can remember which one it is, I'll put a link to that one. But there are many tutorials available for the magic loop. Not circle, the magic loop. But I was fascinated, and once it sunk in, it was very manageable. But you literally put your stitches on and you maneuver. You're always knitting from only the top bar. So you make yourself like this little, I'm not going to confuse anybody, but I know now. I make a little tail for myself. The yarn must always be on the top side, and then you knit off those stitches, which actually makes it go quite quickly, because you just have this little bit that you're knitting over here, and then you have to do the whole swapperoo thing. Knitters might be laughing at me, and those that are beginners, it is possible. You can do it. I have a beanie. It's such a beautiful beanie. I'm going to definitely try making more of these. In fact, I think I want to make a whole lot of little red ribbed beanies like this, just to get that movement and everything else synced into the head. But with the magic loop came, which is why I kept this with me. And it does look very odd, which is why I think I should go back and revisit it. This has been a number of weeks ago now that I had done this little beanie. But it looks very odd. But believe me, if you're a beginner knitter, I'm sure you can do it. I mean, I got there in the end. But I used a separate piece of thread. And those very few stitches that you've cast on, you get to sort of like whip stitch this little bottom section together, which I did in a white yarn. So your piece stays closed like this at the bottom. And yes, I left mine there the entire time. In fact, only when I had pulled off everything over here and I had to, close up that little, which also looks quite very, very neat. I'm very chuffed with this little beanie. Only then did I actually take this out from how I had kept it together at the bottom. That was just as nerve-wracking, because I was wondering, oh my gosh, what if I didn't do it properly and I caught a stitch or something? But it doesn't. It works. And I've kept it in here so that for the next beanie I do, I already have my little stitch marker and my thread to keep this together. So what a journey in learning something different with knitting, and that was to make my first beanie, knitted beanie. And even though, again, I didn't have the tool, there is a tutorial out there that helps you along the way to learn how to do the magic loop. So I feel rather accomplished. I did know about the magic circle, and now I know about the magic loop. And that's it. That's the update at the, oh no, wait. Sorry, one more thing to share with you. As I say, Fiber Flux Knitting does have a lot of beginner-friendly tutorials. And again, I did this quite a few weeks ago, so I would really have to go back to the drawing board when it comes to actually the next knit project. But I do plan on trying to knit a cowl. And this time, I'm going to be rather adventurous and not keep all the stitches there. I'm going to make little holes in the middle of a project. And I did do the tiniest little sample for myself. And it's a cowl. It's also on Fiber Flux's list. Don't know if we can see it. But it's a cowl. I did a very small sample. I don't know if you can see the little holes. But as you do the cowl, you are creating these little holes. There they are. There. So I did this tiny, tiny little sample. I was also practicing the magic loop as I was doing it. This time, I'm sure this will go with one of my little amigurumis. Could be a little neck warmer. I know it is very tiny. There's the little holes. It's a beautiful cowl. So if I can get to knit it, I think I'll be well on my way to putting another something new learning to the knitting journey. So that is my plan, is for my next knit project. Hopefully I'll be able to make a cow and learn to put holes in the knitting. All right, thanks so much, guys. Coming up shortly in another video, we will decide whether it's a yarn haul or whips and cows. So that's the end to our knitting adventure update. Thank you so much for joining me, and whatever it is that you are crafting with, I do hope that you are having a marvelous time learning new things every day. Bye for now.